Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we cover a lot going on with the home teams. And boy, there's a lot going on. No, that's really not. But there is the NBA draft tonight. And, of course, we'll talk a little high school. We'll talk a little Saints. We'll talk a little LSU as well. We'll get into all that. Got a great guest tonight. Garland Gillen of Fox 8 Sports and Gus Catgill of ESPN 100 here in New Orleans. Guys, welcome to the show. As always, thanks for coming down. I'd like to start off telling the folks a little bit about what you're involved in. Gus, you got a lot of things that you got your hands in. Tell us about it.
Yeah, getting ready for another, hopefully it will be an exciting season for Tulane football, being part of the broadcast crew there, women's basketball, play-by-play. I know they have a lot of excitement on the men's basketball team, especially with the draft, seeing if one of their own will go in and get a name called even in the second round. And more importantly, obviously, it's crazy. You're looking at, I was just looking at the different Wednesdays that are coming up, or Thursdays, different topics. You only have 4, and then all of a sudden, guys, we're at Saints training camp. So it is right around the corner. The last week of June's next week, and then count 4 Thursdays, and Garland will be out there sweating, watching training camp. And there's so many storylines, and not only for Saints football this year, high expectation levels, but we'll talk about LSU, how that maybe transcends too, but even uptown New Orleans. And before the show started, Garland and I were talking about the high school football that's going to be coming this fall, folks. Is pretty amazing.
Well, this 2019 class is supposed to be, outstanding. Garland's been all over it with Fox 8, and Garland, welcome to the show. Tell us about what you guys have going over at Fox 8, because great programming, obviously, is going on as football season comes along, but you guys are putting some great features out right now as well.
Yeah, with the Saints in downtime right now and LSU quiet right now also in Tulane Uptown, we've been doing a ton of profiles on the top talent in the southeast Louisiana. I went to Amite, went to Warren Easton, went to Edna Carr, went to Hahnville, went to Rummel, and we've just been churning them out every night just so our local area gets to know who these kids are, and they're all 5- and 4-star players, some 3-stars too. So it's been fun this week, but training camp, as we said, they let the schedule out today. We know that training camp starts July 26th. The actual first day of practice is going to be July 26th, a Thursday. But this fall, we talked about it a moment ago, Eric, right before we went on the air. We're going to have 3.5 hours of programming per week on Fox 8 come football season. On Monday night, a black and gold breakdown at 10:35. Tuesday night, we have a new show now. It's called Fox 8 Overtime, which the 4 of us, Sean Fazan, Chris Hagan, Wonka Cade, and I, we're going to break down the big topic with the Saints, LSU, Tulane, and some prep football. It's at 10:35 on Tuesday night, Fox 8 Overtime. We're moving game plan to Wednesday. It's usually Thursday night. We have game plan on Wednesday. Thursday night, a lot of weeks of the regular season. We're going to have Thursday night football. It's going to be either 14 or 15 weeks. Friday night, Fox 8 football. Friday, we cover prep at 10:35. Tailgate, get you ready for the game at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. And then we finish it all up 10:30 on Sunday night with final play. So a ton of programming this fall. If you love football, there's one place to be this fall. It's going to be Fox 8.
And you wonder why this guy's on vacation right now.
Yeah, I'm taking it now because we're going to be, once the week of training camp starts, it's all in. Though I will say this, SEC Media Days are the week before that. Right. So I have to come back for that week because Chris Hagan's going to go to Atlanta. They're moving into Atlanta this year, which I think is really cool. Yeah. It's going to be the College Football Hall of Fame, SEC Media Days. Right. It's been in Hoover forever. They're moving to the College Football Hall of Fame. I'm a little jealous because I've never been there, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's get it started, guys. Recruiting, that's the big story for LSU right now. Derek Stingley Jr., grandson of Darryl Stingley, who we all know was paralyzed, Jack Tatum, Oakland Raiders back in the 70s. He is at least verbally committed to be an LSU Tiger. #1 recruit in the nation, unusual for a cornerback, and he's said to be solid LSU. I know you talked about it this week. Yeah. Your thoughts?
I'll say this. I know Garland is going out and doing the prep stuff. You had to be impressed with the way he announced. I love it, right?
Yeah.
This video, put it together and everything. And it was crazy because some people that I talked to are like, oh, it's all about it. I'm like, I loved it. I love what he tweeted. He said, I'm going to do it tomorrow, right? It's in June. It's not in the fall. You see, and he said it in the tweet. No hats, no press conferences. Respect my decision. This is how it is. And he put out 2 videos. And the first one that really stood out to me, look, Garland probably follows it a lot more than I do. And it's so hard with all these different players. But they do a great job doing that. But look, you know who this guy was and what he was doing. But still, he gives you a 5-minute video of who he is. You hear from his coach, you hear from his father, his football background, what he's good at and doing, and what kind of kid he is. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. You know, and I'm starting to see who he is. And then in the announcement video, was that not a Nike or Gatorade spot at the very beginning where he's talking about looking at the receiver? I'm sizing him up. I'm looking at his hips. I'm sitting there, I'm like, this kid's 16. You know, I mean, his birthday was the day he announced to turn 17. But he understood the game, and all of a sudden he's like, once a tiger, always a tiger. Hear the music. I'm like, great, because guys, the only thing I take away with that, forget the 5-star, he can talk about that. Forget what he can bring on the field, we all can talk about that. That program needed a boost as bad as I can think. Yeah. It wasn't just me. I had that feeling, though, that there was so much negativity surrounding LSU. And, you know, going and finding a quarterback in May that doesn't not even practice with this team yet they're putting hopes on. You just got this feeling of, what is O doing? The ship is sinking. 6 new SEC coaches. You look at the West, more people feel the other teams with new coaches are going to be better. And then just that one commit, guys. Right? Don't you get the sense and feeling, Garland, that it feels different all of a sudden?
Well, the Joe Burrow transfer was the big coup for LSU this summer. But now you get Stingley. This is one of the greatest crops of LSU or Louisiana talent we've had in a long time. The number 2 running back in America is at Deschamps right now, John Emery Jr. One of the top receivers in America, Devontae Lee, is at A-Meet. Ishmael Sopsher, his teammate in A-Meet, is the number 1 defensive tackle in America. He's leaning toward LSU because Ed Ogeron, defensive lineman. That Trey Palmer, 10 miles away in Kentwood, right next to them, he is also one of the top 10 receivers in America. So you have 3 top 50 players in America within a 10-mile radius right there. Wow. And then you get back into the city. Lance Lejeune at Warren Easton is one of the top 20 quarterbacks in America. Chester Kimbrough at Warren Easton and Devin Bush at Edna Carr are 2 of the top cornerbacks in the nation. They're in the top 20, top 25. It is insane, the amount of talent. And that's why I've told everybody this week, LSU is going to have a top 5 recruiting class, because you know what? The one thing you can't say about Coach O that he hasn't done is that he holds down Louisiana. It's rare that players get out of Louisiana. The only thing that hurts Louisiana and LSU right now is there's not a top-notch quarterback in this class. Right. Next year with T.J. Finley out of Ponchatoula, 2020. Gosh, it's crazy we talked that far ahead. Right. But unless Joe Burrow kills it for the next 2 years, then they might be all right with that. But there's only one good quarterback, and he's at Warren Easton. He's a verbal commitment to University of Kansas. Some people will be like, why University of Kansas?
Tony Hull, right?
Tony Hull. He coached Lance when Lance was a freshman. They have a tight bond. I'm amazed that Tony Hull's still at Kansas because the amount of kids, I mean, to get Puka to Kansas.
There's a pipeline.
Yeah. Puka Williams was one of the best running backs I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. To get him to go to Kansas is impressive. Tony Hull's pulling a lot of talent up to University of Kansas, so we'll see. I don't see Tony Hull staying there too long.
Yeah, and to his point, just quickly to interrupt, it was big because Nick Saban the last couple of years has been pulling some talent from Louisiana and some big names going. So to his point, I think, because I think we all agree, and it's crazy how LSU's changed from the perception, right? Well, a lot of us are going, this is a tough schedule. This is tough. Can they do it? I mean, you're almost going to schedule in this conference is too hard. So in order to keep players and to do that, I think it's going to help, especially because this might be, I mean, people are going, are they going bowling? I'm like, this guy, 6 wins. And you look at the schedule and you're going, well, we had Phil Steele on the show this week. He said they will be underdogs in 6 games this year. So in half the games, and we're throwing out La Tech, we're throwing, no disrespect, but Southeastern and Rice. Right. So 3 of the other 6 games in which you're not an underdog in, you know, I mean, it's... Yeesh. Yes.
I'm not buying them being an underdog in the opener against the University of Miami. That defense for LSU with Greedy Daniels and Devin White in the middle, I'm sure y'all pay attention a little to gambling there, and they announced today that a month from now, you can go across the border to Mississippi and gamble. So I'm not advocating gambling on the show that much, but I will say LSU is a 3-point underdog against Miami in week 1. I don't buy that one. I think LSU not only covers, I think they're winning straight up in that game. I know Miami is gonna go back down a little there, and I think LSU's defense is just, I don't care what they have on offense, that defense is going to swarm Miami, and they're going to win that game.
Let's get back to Derek Stingley Jr. for a moment. Break him down for us, for those that have not seen him play.
He plays everywhere in the field. He plays offense, defense, he returns, punts, kickoffs, he plays receiver, he plays running back, he plays cornerback. And now Dunham is a smaller school,
absolutely.
So you have to play those kind of teams. I talked to Nelson Stewart last week, head coach at Newman. Newman was down 2 touchdowns to Dunham in the first round of the state playoffs in 2016. First series is over with. one of his best receivers was going up against Stingley. He said, "Don't throw at me anymore. It's just a waste of time." So what they did was they pushed Stingley outside and just started going to the right. And Newman won the game. They came back and beat Dunham because they stayed away from Stingley. He's a shutdown corner, but he's at a smaller school that doesn't have a lot of talent around him. So just because he's good and he plays all over the field, don't expect Dunham to win a state title because the makeup for the lack of talent at the other areas. But he's a special one there, and I talked to some sources at LSU. They knew that he was going to be going to LSU there, that it was going to happen. Now they need to pick up these other guys, and everybody I mentioned, most of those guys have offers from LSU and Alabama, of course.
Mm-hmm. Can you add anything to that with anybody that you brought up?
I would just say it's interesting when you hear the name Patrick Peterson being brought up, and we cover the Saints and talk about them all the time. DBU is kind of switched a little up north, right? Couldn't you say Ohio State right now kind of is just churning out? Bama's had some pretty good defensive backs, but LSU had a run, guys, of not only good defensive backs, playmaking, game-deciding, changing defensive backs. I mean, you got spoiled, right? Peterson, Matthew. I mean, it was just, some really good players that did that. I mean, Adams, we had, you were looking at first-round draft picks after first-round draft picks in that area. So that's why, again, this is such a key that he goes there to kind of, you looked at his video, they announced. No coincidence, right? When you say and you hear, or when you hear the LSU fight song, the highlights are Peterson, Matthew, Adams making plays in the back. So he's comparing that, and you look at his Twitter profile pic, Patrick Peterson, and a few people have already started comparing him to that. So that's the one thing that, that looks to me, because you think of those guys, they were all over the field. You could be used on defense in so many different areas: safety, corner, slot, come in the blitz, return kicks. I mean, when you mentioned that, again, I'm thinking,
got to put them all over the field.
How big a difference was Peterson and Matthew returning punts?
Sure.
Won games with kick returns. So he's that big a difference. I'm telling you, it's just crazy how one player, all of a sudden, people are high-fiving.
We'll say this, this will take off a little of the bitter sting in February because Patrick Surtain Jr. was a 5-star recruit. It was between LSU and Bama. I mean, his dad's from here, went to Endicott, won a state championship, went to Southern Miss, Gus's alma mater, and they thought they were getting him. Him and Jarvis Landry, Patrick Surtain Jr. were extremely tight, and the day that he signed with Bama was Jarvis Landry, you could tell by what he said on Twitter. He was pretty hurt at that one. Today was, Stingley signing this or verbally committing this week is a good sign that things are going to change a little.
Well, the 2019 class, at least verbal, looks like a top class. When you're talking about the kid Banks out of Houston, you're talking about the kid Thomas out of Southern Lab. There's a bunch of other players. I'm not going to go into each and every one of them. But we saw this with Surtain last year, as you mentioned, a guy that verbally commits. You're going to talk about T.J. Finley in a couple minutes because you had a chance to see him. Again, verbal commitment, 2020. This is 2019. Right. They got a full senior year to go. That all they can, even though a lot of these players have said, we're LSU bound, we don't want to be recruited. They're going to be recruited. And again, they're going to have coaches in their ear. Should fans get excited right now about these commits, or should they pump the brakes a bit here?
I think Stingley is locked in. He verbally committed LSU one time before and decommitted, but he would to go through that much. I mean, that was a production crew, that was a professional crew that did that video, from my understanding, talking to some people inside the program. LSU's not done, though, at DB. Since they didn't sign any last year because they missed out on Surtain Jr., they're going to sign 5 of them. They have 3 right now. They got one from Memphis. It's not on the top of my head right now. But you got Banks.
Hampton.
Yes. Hampton. They're recruiting Devin Bush out of
I have the sheet.
There you go. Devin Bush is down to Clemson, Florida, and LSU. I did a profile on him last week. He's another one they possibly could get. So they're not done yet. But they're still after a quarterback right now. Don't think that they've given up on the quarterback position. They've thrown some offers out to some Texas kids, some kid in Tennessee right now possibly. So they're not done yet. But they're going to finish in the top 5. I really think so because of the amount of talent in the state. If Saban swoops in, and if you put me on the spot right now, I think Devontae Lee out of Amy, I think he goes to Alabama. He's close to Devontae Smith, who's already there, caught the winning catch against Georgia. Right. So Saban's going to come in and grab 1 or 2. It's just the way it's going to be. But I think he's going to grab Sopsher, is going to go to LSU, and a few others.
TJ Finley, talk about him. I know we had Sean on last week.
Sean was really worried about how did he? I didn't see last week. Sean's getting worried that he's getting too tall. Like
he was. That's what he was saying. He was worried about getting
Sean
too
says
tall.
it every day in the office that he's worried because he's like 6'6" right now.
Yeah.
He's worried that he's gonna get like 6'8" and 6'9" and get too big to play quarterback there. But doing interviews, he's as professional as they come. I mean, you remember? Now I don't remember very well, but if we got in front of a camera when we were 15 or 16, I don't think the things I would have said would even come close to TJ Finley. These kids are so groomed right now.
Media savvy.
The coaches are so smart with these kids. And I will tell you this, all the interviews I've done with these kids in the last 2 weeks, I've done, I think, 8 or 9 profiles. The head coach is right next to the kid. He's watching the whole thing. So it takes notes. I interviewed Travis Mumphrey from John Ehret yesterday. His coach, Marcus Scott, was standing right next to him. And actually, after the interview was over with, he brought him over and goes, hey, next time let's talk a little more about this. So these kids are coached. Yeah. You're not getting a one-on-one and the coach is like way over there. They watch what's going on with their program there. So these kids are well schooled, and they're on these 7-on-7 camps all over America, doing interviews for Rivals, 24/7 Sports. So they know what's going on.
Talk about 7-on-7 because that really is kind of a new phenomenon.
It's unbelievable, huge, really. And again, it goes back to the Stingley video recruit. You see them; they're wearing those plastic helmets to protect themselves.
I think it's with the bootleggers or something.
It's crazy when you think of how big that's gotten, Garland.
Like AAU in basketball, right?
Well, I mean,
same thing now.
Whether it's your YouTube, your Facebook, or your Twitter, there it is. There's your highlight reels. You can pin the tweet at the very top, and you can almost help promote yourself to kind of get out there and do it. But to Garland's point, no longer are these kids, this is the first time there's a camera. Where's the red light? I mean, they're not. Right. So, and I understand that. And again, when you're being recruited by some of the schools that he's mentioning, you're being recruited by a national champion, man, you're ready. And look, and to his point with the coaches being there, this is them too, and it helps their high school program. Yes. And the more universities keep showing up to their high schools, the better. Everyone wins on that situation from that standpoint. So, and quite honestly, it's a huge decision for them. It's a big decision for those kids. It matters. It means a lot. It's crazy. We're talking about what some of these kids may be able to do and all that, and we're throwing out names and everything, and yet, I don't know, maybe it's the dad in me, the recent dad in me, but I'm sitting there, I'm like, how does Narcisse and Brennan, and guys that we were talking about the same 2 years ago about these kids.
But they got to be ready for that, right?
No, I hear you, but that's my point. That's why this decision matters. That's why I'm glad Coach is there with them, their head coach, because you need as much input before you make a choice, because after all, it is a business, right? Those coaches are there to win. The TAFs of the world or the fan groups that buy the suites and the advertising, they don't have tolerance for losing. I mean, you see schools that have no business getting upset. They're like 2-3 win teams a season, firing coaches and wanting more and expecting more. I mean, you saw the release from Texas A&M last year or Mississippi. They're like, we deserve them. Like, wow. He's like, when did y'all become national championship contenders? So it's crazy you say that the high school coaches are part of it, because you need as much input and help, because it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming to cover. I can't imagine what it is for, letters, tweets, emails, nudges from people or what have you, man, pulling you in one direction or another.
Well, let's talk about the future with these recruits. And Gus, I'll take you first. Does that want you have to have a successful season to hold on to these verbal commitments? I mean, if the thing goes in the tank, are they going to stay strong, or are they going to have these other coaches in the air? And there's another part of this. You're talking about Saban coming in here, but how many Saban disciples are now head coaches that have inroads into Louisiana, that have inroads to these coaches? And again, so how do you, if you're Ed Ogeron, how do you put that fence around Louisiana? And then is it also about, again, having a successful program without having other coaches coming in and saying, hey, this guy's on the hot seat. He may not even be there in a year.
I think the Burroughs decision, doesn't it, guys, kind of tell you where there is no time for pay. There is no building, rebuilding. There's no adding. It's I need help now. And you go and do it. I mean, because there's no other way to look at it other than, I don't know, maybe some panic or something like to where you go through all spring and you go, this guy's available, great, let's get him. We have no idea how good he can be. He hadn't played on a field. There's no experience, there's no games you can kind of go to, anything of that nature, yet you're banking now that he's better than the guys that have been in your program. That's telling to me. So there is pressure there. there's pressure, like I've been saying too. What happens if you're in the latter half of the season and you're not at 6 wins yet? Because I say this all the time. In today's day and age, and Garland knows this, doing all these high school stories, if you don't think kids are on this all the time, reading what's being said about them, and that's why I say, as a fan base, are you okay and you ready to absolutely kill some of these kids, especially at the quarterback position, when they throw a pick in the first quarter? This guy's garbage. This dude's terrible. Bench him. Do that. If I'm a kid and I'm a recruit, now again, you're saying you better be ready for that. But I'm also sitting there reading that and going, okay, is O going to be there? So when we're killing O, if he starts out 2-2 or worse, and we're killing those players and it's bringing this guy, it's crazy. Fans and the fan base can have an effect on it.
When you look at those guys in the eyes, is that going to make a difference down the line here?
I think so. We're going to go back to Patrick Surtain. In his press conference when he signed with Bama, he said they're winning championships.
Right.
I will say this. If it goes downhill, Olivas could possibly be gone, Ogeron, and the big one is Corey Raymond will be gone.
Yeah.
He's the cornerback coach for LSU. He's the one getting all of these kids. This is DBU, is Corey Raymond bringing all these kids in. So if Ed Ogeron's no longer there, then all bets are off. And you would talk about other coaches coming in.
Right.
Dan Mullen's already come into Louisiana with Mississippi State. Now, I don't know if y'all, I know you've been to Stark Vegas. I don't know if you've ever been. There's nothing there. It's a depressing town. So Dan Mullen was getting, I say, some big-time recruits to go to that small town. Now he has a real program now. He's coaching University of Florida. He's coaching in Gainesville, which is a much nicer place to be. So now he has, and if you look at a lot of these kids in Louisiana, Florida is on their list. John Emery Jr. from Destrehan, it's on his list. Chester Kimbrough from Warren Easton, cornerback. Florida is on their list. Florida was in Stingley's final 3 with Texas. Florida is on all their lists because Mullen already has those contacts in Louisiana, and now he has a real program behind him.
Yeah.
Ole Miss's coach, I think Ole Miss is staying for a while there. No big-time recruits in Louisiana are putting Ole Miss on their list right now.
Right.
Yeah, and don't forget, again, Texas A&M.
Yeah.
What's the impact of Jimbo? Remember, this is a
But it's not
guy
just
that
Fisher.
LSU wanted first.
Right.
So
it's not just Fisher, though, Gus. I mean, you look around the SEC and you see all these Saban disciples who are now head coaches.
Yeah.
Who, again, they've recruited Louisiana. They know the high school coaches. They have inroads here. That's also something you have to worry about. So it's not just Saban. It's not just Fisher. There's a plethora of coaches out there that have, again, relationships here in Louisiana.
Not Georgia. They have a great quarterback that's a freshman and go out and get the #1 quarterback to come in
Justin
this
Fields.
year.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, it is. It's amazing.
And they got, Georgia just picked up a quarterback for 2019 who is from, he's from Mississippi. He's from where Brett Favre's kids go to school.
Yeah.
I think it's Oak Grove, Mississippi. One other thing about these quarterbacks, we'll see down the line there. I think Joe Burrow,
Talk
he's
about
good.
it. That's where I'm going next.
I will say this. And when LSU realized they were not going to get the double-digit wins, I really think that Ed Ogeron did a total disservice to Miles Brennan not starting in those final 3 games. Now, I understand Tennessee was in a monsoon. The weather was nasty, but you need to put him in those kind of situations.
I'm with you.
I don't know what they were playing for at the end there. Just you should have put him in there. Sorry, he still wanted to get double-digit wins. He could no longer play for the SEC championship.
Right.
I missaid that.
No, but I know what you meant.
No. Yeah, I really think he did a disservice to Miles Brennan on those, and that's why we're here with Joe Burrow right now. I think if Miles Brennan played in those final 3 games, then we might not even be talking about Joe Burrow. We'd be talking about Miles Brennan starting quarterback.
100%. I crushed him. I think it was an amateur move, to be honest with you.
Because get Burrow?
No, to not see what you have in Miles Brennan.
Right.
I mean, it makes no sense. Because here's the thing. When they did bring him in during the season, it was when the offense was sputtering. They were down 7-0. It's like, hey, freshman, go help us and get the offense going. So then when people go, well, look at him throw the interception, like, well, you put him in there to try to make a play. I mean, it's what you did.
Right.
You know, I mean, even at Bama, that freshman played great, won the national championship. He threw a pick, and you're asking him to go make plays. And my thing is this, like, you weren't beating Bama. You weren't winning the SEC West. You weren't going to you weren't going to a big-time bowl game. And even after that, I could sacrifice that if for the next 3 years I might have somebody, or even 2 years, right? So why not give them an entire week of first-string reps? Why not give him an entire week of practice? Why not try to see what you have in the kid? And I'm not even talking about on the field. How does he prepare? How does this teammates respond to him? Let me see to when then you're getting there and you get that first recruiting in December, that first, that 2 signing periods now. You have a great idea. You absolutely do, because it's a month. And then you have weeks going to the bowl game. He would have had, guys, about 6 to 7 weeks of practice, preparation, getting ready for a game, and then I could have sat down on the desk and gone, all right, this was game 1 when he started, had a full week, to the bowl game, whoever they played, who cared if it was the Weed Eater Bowl. And I want to see how he goes. Now, if in the Weed Eater Bowl they go and hammer a terrible team, I feel good. If he struggled there, well, there wasn't a lot of growth. But I can see that. There is nothing that you can tell me that he's terrible all of a sudden. I know. I have a problem with that, Yeah. I mean, this guy's supposed to be a savior, and you never really honestly gave him a fighting shot.
Especially after you said you were. Okay, and that was another part of this. Again, we're going to play Miles Brennan, and then when you had a chance to play him at the end of the year, you didn't play him.
Threw him into the wolves at Alabama at the end of the game when the game was over with. And he actually looked decent in there, and they just threw him out there.
All right, guys, with only a few minutes left. With that said, Joe Burrow's the guy now?
I wouldn't give it to him yet. This fall is going to be very intriguing. I will say that from what I've heard with LSU people inside the program, they didn't guarantee him a starting job. This is open competition. I will say it's between Miles Brennan and Joe Burrow. I would think Justin McMillan is going to graduate, and he'll probably be gone at the end of this summer. And then I think Lowell Narcisse will be right behind him sooner or later. He might after fall drills, when Narcisse realizes he's number 3, he might bail on the program too.
I was going to say, it's crazy when you didn't know all last season what their offense was, and you still couldn't tell. Right. And there's infighting between the coach and the offensive coordinator there. How do you think it is to play quarterback there?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just nuts, right? Because the guy that was terrible last year as a starter, I mean, Bill Belichick's taking a chance on him.
No, true.
I mean, it's
true.
crazy.
But I mean, again, and that's another thing about this Burrow situation. With only 35% of the offense in, it's not like you're in a situation where everybody that's been there is light years ahead of Burrow. They're going to come in and pretty much be on even footing, and then it will be about the ability to be able to again go out, compete, win the job. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Garland Gillen of Fox 8 Sports, Gus Cattingill of ESPN 100.3 FM here in New Orleans. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Garland Gillen of Fox 8 Sports, Gus Cattingill of ESPN 100.3 FM are our guests. Guys, let's shift gears to the NBA. Tonight is the NBA draft. Mitchell Robinson, Melvin Frazier. A lot of talk about Robinson going to the Los Angeles Lakers. There was a promise made. Robinson kind of a weird scenario because he was first committed to Texas A&M, then he rescinds that. Then he's going to Western Kentucky, going to follow the coach there. Then he rescinds that, decides he's going to stay out of school for the year and work on his game. Then when it comes time to go to the NBA Combine and to be able to go and compete against some of the best young stars that are going to be available for this draft, he opts out of that because supposedly there was a rumor that the Los Angeles Lakers had promised they would take him with their later pick. I think it's like 28 or 29, right up in there. On the other hand, you got Melvin Frazier, who you know a lot about, from Tulane, who again comes in with not a lot of fanfare out of Higgins. All of a sudden, Dunleavy puts his hands on him and turns him into a pretty good 3-and-D small forward, a guy that can shoot the ball. He's electric around the rim. He goes to the Combine. He tears it up. All of a sudden, now eyes are on him. The latest rumor is the Golden State Warriors really want him with their first-round pick. We'll take Mitchell Robinson first. You had a chance to interview him. Talk about the kid.
Well, first of all, I think the agent for Mitchell Robinson is playing it the right way because the video that agents and scouts have is him playing against Bonneville and 5A and 4A schools in the New Orleans area and him dunking all over these kids.
Because we have no size here.
Yeah, blocking. I mean, I shot 2 of his games his senior year, and some kids my height were trying to go up at him, and it wasn't happening, okay? So he transferred into Chalmette for his junior and senior year. His senior year team had 9 seniors on it, 5